Hello, welcome to the Superbone channel. We're interviewing top trombonists from around the world for International Trombone Week 2020. And next up is Stephen Sykes, and he's a Superbone member and trombonist extraordinaire. Say hi, Steve.
Hiya. I see you, Mike.
Nice to see you, Steve. Stephen has played with many of the world's best brass bands and won BBC Radio 2 Young Brass Soloist of the Year in 2009. Steve, would you like to tell us a bit about sort of your journey since then and where you are now?
Well, 2009 is a long time ago now. It's an awful long time. I mean, it's been a strange probably 10 or so years since then. I mean, I went through the music college system with the Royal Welsh College of Music, which was really good, and got my degree there. But then it was after that, obviously, most people know I was quite ill for a while, and my trombone playing really did go back burner, and probably has been for the last handful of years at least. But yeah, really getting back into it now, especially on lockdown. I don't think I've done this much practice in the last decade, so it's great.
Brilliant. No, that's great to hear, Steve. Let's get on to some questions. Can you tell us who your favourite jazz trombonist is, and if you've got a recording that you want to kind of highlight?
See, this is quite a hard question because I don't have one famous favourite jazz trombone player, really. I have probably 10.
Yeah.
For different reasons. I mean, kind of all at different stages of my life, really. I mean, the first one I got into a lot as a kid was Don Lusher.
Mm.
And I was lucky enough to meet Don a couple of times before I was even a trombone player. Obviously, I had a big connection with brass bands. And one of my earliest brass band concert memories, and definitely anything to do with the trombone, was a concert. I think my dad was conducting Woodfall's band at that time. He'll probably watch this and tell me I've got that wrong, but I think that's who it was. And it was a concert down here somewhere with Don Lusher as guest soloist doing Rhapsody for trombone, the typewriter, all that sort of stuff. And I got one of the very last copies of, it's probably really rare now, the Don Lusher book. It was a great big thing. And it was like a sort of autobiography as well as a sort of method book in the back.
Yeah.
And he signed, I'm going to have to find that out somewhere. It's buried in some moving boxes. I haven't seen it for years, but sort of as we moved on a bit, still sort of a brass band connection. There was a big thing in the brass band world, a charity brass band that was formed with a lot of the movement's top players, called Brass Band Aid, which was a charitable thing for things happening in Africa, Ethiopia, all this sort of thing. And they did, a lot of concerts for charity, and they did this really big one in, funnily enough, in Butlins in Skegness. Of all places, right? Butlins in Skegness, right? And they had a few guests over. Well, at that time, Doug Yeo was over. I think they'd been recording their CD, Two of a Mind. And whilst Doug was over, he came to the southwest and stayed in my house for a few days when we took him round places. And so I spent a few days with Doug, and Doug got me massively into Herbie Green.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The whole 21 trombone and his other albums as well. But of course, at that point, I had my CD player, but you couldn't buy these things on CDs. So a few weeks later, when Doug had gone back to Boston, this package came through the letterbox at home with 6 or 7 CDs in, which were the actual rips of all of Doug Yeo's personal Herbie Green collection.
Wow.
And I was so in awe of it, this stuff coming through, because I've still got the packet somewhere. I kept it because he'd written on it.
Wow.
It was like, Doug Yeo's written something to me. Yeah. So I've still got it somewhere. So I got massively into that. Like everywhere I went, I had my little portable CD player listening to Herbie Green. Then I got hit by Bill Watrous.
Oh, didn't we all?
Oh, man. Talk about technique. It's just crazy. Range and everything. Oh. And that was the point where I kind of thought, well, this Don Lusher thing, if I really, really practice, I might be able to play some of this stuff. I mean, I really, really practiced, and then I could, and I went out and played Rhapsody and all them sort of things quite a few times. And Then we moved on to Herbie Green, and although there was no way you could perform this stuff because we haven't got access to all that music here, or at least I didn't. But he was another one. I thought, well, if I practice really hard, I could maybe play some bits. So I learned by ear to play my favourite bits of these tunes. Then Bill Watrous came along, and that's when I realised I can't play the trombone anymore. I'm never going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And the album I had was it Live at the Blue Note?
Yeah.
And he does this encore thing, I seem to remember. I mean, it must be 10 years since I listened to it, but he does this encore thing on there. Was it I Want to Be Happy or something? The last thing he plays is like 5-minute cadenza at the beginning.
Oh.
And it's like, there's no techniques that exist that aren't in those 5 minutes.
Yeah. Anyway, we better move on. Steve, out of those trombonists, which one do you think you tried to model your playing on? Which did you get the most out of?
I think Herbie Green. Don Lusher's obviously fantastic, but I think Herbie Green was Don, but on a slightly different level. I mean, Don's great. No one can play a tune like Don Lusher. But I mean, it all sort of just progressed. I mean, you know, I got into Bill Watrous, and then after that, I became the world's biggest Mark Nightingale fan.
Right.
And the interesting thing with Mark Nightingale, not only is he a great trombone player and great teacher, but anyone that teaches music, like like I'm doing with kids at the moment, you know, he's still part of, say, someone that's not even grade 1 tenor horn. You know, he did those easy jazzy tunes, which are in all the exam books. So even kids that don't necessarily know all the notes of all, the C major scale yet, will have some connection with Mark Nightingale.
Yeah.
Which I think that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Steve, let's move on to your career. We talked about your influences from pro trombonists, but let's talk about your teachers. Who was the biggest influence for you in your playing?
Well, I mean, I was lucky that right from the beginning, I had my dad at home who taught me, and really, I can't think of many other better teachers ever than my dad's teaching, because even now, I mean, I was going through Arrows of Time yesterday, and Dad's out there watering the garden. I like split a couple of notes. He'll come in and say, that's that top F there, move your jaw forward. I'm like, all right, I'll go back in and try that phrase again. And he's right.
Yeah.
He's right. But I mean, I was also really lucky. I mean, I had some really great teachers. I mean, two that I could think of in particular that did so much for me that I think just came at the right time. One was when I went to Wells Cathedral School. I had a trombone teacher called Alan Hutt. Just came at the right time for me, really, because he was just getting me into all these sort of... I'd been brought up on things like the Otto Lange and the Arban, and it was Alan that brought me into the sort of Le Fosse world of trombone playing, and bigger classical pieces. I remember doing, the Guilmon concert piece and Cavatine and Lars-Erik Larsen and all these things that, to that point, I'd only ever heard on CDs of Christian Lindberg, and thought I would never get to them, and he just showed me how to do it, which was great.
Yeah.
And the other one was slightly after that. I went to a trombone day at the Royal Academy when I was probably about 14. And it would have been around that sort of time, actually, because there was a masterclass there. And in this masterclass, they said, we're going to have the young players come up to go and play stuff. And we've got a pianist here. And I went and played, and I did Cavatine and got all the way through the end of it. And I thought it was great. And the scary thing is that the masterclass was with Ian Bousfield, who I felt more of a connection with him even before I knew him, because my dad knew him and they're about the same age in the Yorkshire band scene.
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky that we kind of got talking with him afterwards, and he said, well, why don't you come up here when you can, and I'll be your teacher for a bit. So for a while I had Ian, my dad, and Alan for probably about a year. And so we used to go up on the train, I think, whenever he was down, every 3 weeks. And he made me a member of the academy as well. So I didn't have to pay for the lessons. It was just fantastic. And, people say never meet your heroes. which in most cases, having met some of them, is true, because then you just think, actually, I'm not sure I like him in reality. But Ian wasn't that. He was my hero before that, and during that it was even more. And even now, he's still probably my biggest trombone hero. I think he's just an absolute genius, but he's a completely great guy as well.
Yeah. Steve, give us something funny that's happened to you while you were playing or related to doing a gig.
Well, there's so many that are sort of, I'm sure a lot of people know, that are mainly down to bad clothing decisions. But they're not particularly interesting. I mean, we've all turned up to concerts wearing the wrong shoes or something.
Yes.
Like, I did a charity one once in Kettering, and drove there, did the rehearsal, and everything was fine. And start getting changed backstage, and I'm seeing a lot of black shirts. Thinking, well, hang on a minute, what? No, as someone told me, I thought, oh, I'm sure I put one in. I'd have put one in thinking they haven't said anything, and I'll just put a black and a white one in just in case. Turned out I hadn't. I was like the only person on the stage wearing a white shirt.
Well, at least it got you noticed, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unintentional though. It wasn't through good playing.
Brilliant, Steve. We might move on. Can you give us a couple of projects you're involved in at the moment, so people can kind of check them out and see what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So, well, one of the things that's on Facebook at the minute, I've started up my own sort of music page, which is going to be somewhere if you want to know more about what I'm doing, which is from my teaching, my playing, my conducting, everything. There's also the other one on there, which was quite popular, which I started the week after I had my stem cell transplant, trying to get back into playing myself, which is the 100-day practice challenge, which I think in the current climate is going to get a reboot.
Great.
Might even be later today. But yeah, I'm trying to get into this whole sort of home recording video thing as well. So there's a couple of things out there we've just been working on. One is, if you've not already seen it, Game of Bones. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
It's good fun. So that's Andy Austin, bass trombone player who plays at Tredegar Band, does a lot of arranging. And it's basically a lot of his friends. We all get together.
Yeah.
And I think it started off as a bit of a drinking club. And now they're just playing. So that's what we're doing. So there's more stuff coming up on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things like this Lockdown Orchestra. I did a couple of things for that as well, which will be going up on there soon. So yeah, so if anyone's got anything they want to send me to record, obviously Superbone as well.
Yes, hopefully, yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I need things to do. I'm in better shape now. The best shape I've been probably at least 7 or 8 years. So.
Great. Yeah, brilliant. And it's so good to hear about your current projects. I think we're all sort of waiting and, just waiting for this lockdown to be lifted. But there's so much that we can do together online. So, it's really great to hear that. Steve, I want to thank you for agreeing to be interviewed by me for Superbone. It's been really good to catch up with you. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I hope people have enjoyed what you've had to say. So thanks very much again. And for all you listening at home, hope to see you at another time. Thank you.
That was another interview for Superbone channel for International Trombone Week 2020. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like, share and subscribe. We'll see you again.